Today I'm going to be showing you how easy it is to use the So Simple Drip Icing made exclusively for Cake Craft World. And I'm going to do that by creating this showstopper of a cake. It really is a great centerpiece. The fab thing about this icing is it's suitable for use on iced cakes like these. It also works well on buttercreamed cakes like this. And you can even decorate donuts with it. My name is Abby and let's get started. So I popped some of my drip icing into a microwavable bowl and I'm going to heat this up because as you can see it's quite thick. So I'm going to pop this in the microwave for about 10 seconds and then I'm going to add some colour to it, and if I need any more I'm going to pop it back in for 5 more seconds. You don't want this to get really hot, it's just enough to warm it through so that it starts to go quite liquid. Okay, and as you can see that is already starting to be nice and runny. Okay, so I'm going to add some colour now. I'm using a fuchsia paste colour here for this, for the pink. So I'm going to add some of that to my icing. Give it a stir. Okay, so I'm quite happy with that colour, but I am going to pop it back in just for a few more seconds. Okay, so I'm happy with that now. So I'm going to pop it into a piping bag. I've got a clear plastic piping bag and I haven't cut the end off. I've left the end as it is. And what we'll do is we'll just snip the end off in a moment. And I've popped it inside a pint glass because when you've got icing like this and you're trying to fill a piping bag up, it's very difficult to do it by yourself. So I pop it over a pint glass so that I can just pour it straight in. So I'm going to scrape all of that into there. Give that a squeeze, twist the end of your piping bag, and then I'm just going to snip the end off of this when I'm ready to start pouring it onto my cake. So I've got my cake in front of me now, and I am using a 9, 7 and 5 inch cake. I've got a nice sharp edge on this just because I think it works really well with the drip. So I'm going to snip the end off my piping bag, just a little bit. I'm going to start on the bottom tier and I'm going to squeeze and let it drip down a little bit, and then I'm going to move along and squeeze again, squeeze, squeeze, and that's all you're going to do. You're going to move around the edge, squeezing as you go. The harder you squeeze and the longer you squeeze, the more likely you are to have a big drip. So if you want little drips, just squeeze gently, and for bigger drips, squeeze longer and harder. I've got my cake on a turntable here just to make it easy for me to move it. Brilliant. So you can see I've gone all the way around, and I really love the fact that you can't guarantee what you're going to get with this, and it's always going to be different. I like that slightly messy look about it. So you can see I've got some really nice short drips here, but around this side I've got some really nice long drips, and they start to puddle at the bottom. So now that I'm done with my pink, I'm going to move on to my blue layer. So I'm going to do exactly the same again as I did with the pink. Pop my icing in a bowl, heat it up, colour it, pop it back in again, and then pop it in a piping bag. Okay, so I've got my blue icing in my piping bag now, and for that I am using ice blue paste colour. And we're going to do exactly the same again. So squeeze and move along, squeeze. There you go. See, these ones are a little bit more controlled. It will be worth noting that the hotter you heat your icing, the runnier it becomes, so the less control you have over your drip. So if you want a more controlled drip, just heat it slightly less so you've got a thicker icing, because then it's much easier to control. If you want to go really wild and have really drippy lines, then warm it up a little bit more. On to the yellow now, which is my third and final colour for this cake. I'm using a melon paste colour here, which has given me this really lovely bright yellow. So again, snip the end of the piping bag, pipe, move and pipe, squeeze. For this cake you will need about 350 grams of icing, and that will give you enough to do all 3 of these drip tiers. And also, if you want quite a chunky drip, cut slightly more off the end of your piping bag. If you want a really fine drip, cut a smaller amount. It's really simple. The wider your hole on the end of your nozzle, the bigger your drips will be. Okay, brilliant. Now this is my favourite bit, because you really start to bring this cake to life. I've got all sorts of sweets down here. I've got some large lollipops here, and I've got some slightly smaller ones down the front. Lovely. And then I've got a variety of things. So I've got giant jazzles, so I've been down to my local sweet shop for these. And then I've got things like these marshmallow twists, which are great. You can pick these up in the supermarkets. I've got flying saucers, and I've got some party ring biscuits. Just anything bright and jazzy that you want to throw on it. And I've looked for things that are different heights and different sizes, because you want to build a bit of height with this cake. So the whole idea is that you've got one big lollipop and then lots of little things around it, and you kind of make like a mountain out of it almost. So I'm going to start with the lollipops. This one here, I have actually cut the stem down a bit. So I've popped a cake pick in my cake so that it doesn't cause any problems when you come to eat your cake. So that one is just going to sit in the top, nice and proud. And that's going to be my basis from where I'm going to build. So everything is going to come below or above that. To attach things to my cake, I've got some royal icing. So any of the larger items, I will use the royal icing for. Anything little like sprinkles, I will attach with edible glue. So I'm going to put one of those in there just to hide that stem. And I'm going to pop these other lollipops down the side so that I've got like a marker to go from. Oh, squeak. And then one down this side here. Oh, jelly bean attached that one. Okay. I'm going to break my party rings. I'm actually going to cut them with a pair of scissors. And so they sort of split in half. So you get these brilliant sort of semicircles, these little arcs. That one's going to go on the top there. And with these, I'm going to cut them to various heights. So I'm going to have some quite tall and some quite short. So I'm going to cut a nice big one that I'm going to poke out the side here, I think. So I'm going to pop a bit of royal icing on my cake for this one. And I'm actually going to pop a little bit on the side at the back of my lollipop so that it securely holds that in place. So a little bit there. And then we should be able to stand that in place. One of those in there, I think. What should I do next? So I'm going to use a little bit of edible glue now. And I'm going to sort of fill in, I'm going to brush this around the base of where I've started to pop some of my sweets, so that anything I sprinkle onto here is going to stick. So I'm going to use some of these little tiny mini pearls. And I've got some of these little chewy sweets here. And then some jelly beans. Move those over. And I've got some of these. These are great because you can twist them. Give them a bit of a twist. Where should I put this one? A little bit of icing on there. I'll fix that in place. Okay. And once you're happy with your top tier, you can start to work down. So I've positioned my lollipops already. Let's see what else we can pop in. I'll tell you what, a really nice thing to do with these is, I wonder if this one's long enough. Not quite. Is to bend them in like an arc shape. It's a little bit fiddly, so you have to sort of hold them in place for a while, but if you bend it and stick it with a bit of royal icing, it creates this really lovely sort of rainbow arc. So I'm going to pop one of those on the bottom tier here. So a little bit of royal icing where you want it start and finish. I've also got some of these chocolatey sprinkletti, which have really lovely multi-sized sort of chocolate balls in them. So some of these are nice and big and some of them are tiny. So they're really nice for sort of adding to the effect. So I'm going to pop some of these in. Oops. Brilliant. So I'm going to finish it with a little tiny pump of silver luster dust. So this is just going to make it nice and sparkly. But I really love how simple and how easy this cake is, but it's so effective and it's such a centerpiece. It's a really lovely cake to have.